morning and welcome to In Your Corner. John Scholes, Sivan, Tumarkin. This is a show about disability and injury law. You may run into this situation sometime in your life. We hope you don't, but if you do, it's good to be well armed with the knowledge you need as far as the laws are concerned. Anytime you want to reach out to Sivan, a member of his team, 1-833 In Your Corner or inyourcorner.ca. Sivan, tell us a little bit about who you are. Well, I know who you are. You're a great guy. You're a good fella.
Thanks, John.
Talk about that.
Tell
what
my wife
you do.
that'd be great.
You're coming over tonight for dinner, right?
Absolutely.
Not anymore. I want to tell everybody about what it is, what you do, a little bit about what your history and what we do here on the show every week.
So I'm a lawyer, and I help people who are on disability, long-term disability, who have been cut off or denied long-term disability. Make sure that the insurance companies don't get away with murder, don't get away with not paying them what they are owed. And that's what my team and I do. Each and every day. And we do that in complement with the rest of the lawyers at the firm who do employment law. Because, John, the reality is that most people who are disabled also have issues with their employment, and so we help them with both sides. So we do injury law, people who have been in car accidents, slip and falls, who've suffered injuries, and primarily deal with people who are just simply disabled and have been cut off long-term disability. We do this day in and day out.
I want to get to the top 5 weaknesses insurance companies have that you must know about. That's a little later on in the show. First, so we'd like to get to a success story, something that's been happening in your office across your desk in the last little while that can kind of summarize what you do.
Yeah, I want to tell you, John, about an interesting case that I had a few months back, and that story really rings true for many people who find themselves in the predicament that this individual found themselves in. And here's what happened. This person is in his 50s, and he suffered from a variety of illnesses, some of which are mental illnesses, complemented with some physical issues, fibromyalgia, chronic pain, etc. And he was working in the tech field, and he was making 6 figures. And he felt at some point that he was unable to do his job. He went on long-term disability. He actually was approved for short-term disability initially, that was paid by his company. And then afterwards, he was paid long-term disability for about a year and a half by his long-term disability insurer, one of the major insurers out there. And then close to the 2-year mark, he got notice from his insurance company that he's going to be cut off disability. And what does he do? Like most people, he appeals that decision. But that appeal is an internal process to the insurance company. In other words, he decided to go to his doctor, as many people do, get more reports that support the fact that he's disabled, and he ended up appealing that to the insurance company. 3 months later, he ends up getting another denial. And at that point, he's frustrated. He thinks he has no options. He listens to us on TV and on radio, and he gives me a call, and I talk to him, and I review his policy, and I review the denial letters, and I review the medical reports. Right. And it's as clear as day that he has a case that the insurance company ought not to have denied his claim. And so we start a legal claim. We don't do any more appeals because those are useless as far as I'm concerned. We start a legal claim. And what happens when we do that? When the insurance company gets served with that legal claim, their defense lawyer picks up the phone, gives me a call and says, do you want to talk settlement?
Right.
And that's endemic. That happens so many times. And people out there need to understand that when they are denied unfairly long-term disability, when they are told you have no case by the insurance company, that is not the end of the analysis. That is not the end of the story. Don't simply take what the insurance company says at face value. You should speak with us, let us examine the paperwork, and then we will tell you if, in fact, you have no options.
1-833 In Your Corner, again, is the phone number. Anytime you want to reach out, get a hold of Sivan, a member of his team, inyourcorner.ca as well. It's worth mentioning anyway that appeals process, or at least when you're offered to appeal the decision, it's to the same people who just cut you off.
It's exactly the same people. Every denial letter, every letter that tells you you're going to get cut off disability from a long-term disability insurer contains a paragraph at the bottom. It's a standard paragraph that says you can appeal this decision within 30 days, let's say. And people think that, okay, well, this is what I need to do. And they immediately do that. But this appeal process is an internal process within the insurance company. There is literally no leverage that you have over the insurance company. Right. You're right. It's either the same people who've declined you in the first place that are now looking at the documents, or it's their colleagues a few cubicles down. So that's why, I always tell people, don't waste your time with these appeals. It's just going to be a long detour. You're going to end up coming to us at the end of the day. And what's worse is some people end up doing one appeal and then a second appeal and a third appeal. and they get frustrated.
And they run out of time.
And they run out of time. And it's unnecessary. It's simply unnecessary. Take the power away from the insurance company. Let us look at the documents. Let us tell you if, in fact, you have a case. And in many instances, you do, in fact, have a case. We tell you if you don't.
Yeah.
And then we start a process that is external to the insurance company that really puts the screws to the insurer. They can't get away from paying what you are owed.
Another great resource for you for a couple things. InYourCorner.ca we'll show you where you can find our radio show, The Employment Hour, and of course, the Insurance and Injury Law Show. On those radio shows, we get a ton of phone calls from both of them. I know, Lior, when we do The Employment Hour, a lot of phone calls, as you mentioned, the firm, it bleeds over. There's employment problems and there's disability problems. They often dovetail with each other. So we get a lot of calls in that regard, and some of them have to do with disability. So I want to play a call now from that show, and I know you want to comment on it.
I have been off work now for 3 years, and I've got long-term disability for 2 of them. I'm actually fighting it now to get my benefits reinstated. Now, if at some point I get better, does the company have to take me back on my job?
Excellent question. And as you can see, of course, as you put it, the employment and disability portions of the question bleed over, which is why we have employment lawyers that can take care of that angle, the employment issue. Let me deal with the disability question that this gentleman had. He says that he's been on disability for almost 2 years. So that tells me that the insurance company believed that he was disabled. But of course, at the 2-year mark of being on long-term disability, the test changes. The initial test for the first 2 years is, can you do your own job, your own occupation? If the doctors say that you cannot, well, then you qualify. But beyond the 2-year mark, the test expands. You now have to show that you can't do any job for which you're suited for by training, education, or experience. And so the majority of people end up getting cut off at that point, even though they cannot work, even though their doctors say they cannot work. Now, this gentleman says, I'm fighting to get my benefits reinstated. I bet you, John, that he's trying to appeal that decision.
Yeah, for sure.
Because that's what most people are doing. They are trying to appeal. You don't need to do that. If your doctors are saying that you cannot work, whether it's the family doctor, the psychologist, the orthopedic surgeon, whoever it is, then you have a case against the insurance company. Fighting them, what does that mean? If you're trying to convince them and persuade them, unfortunately, that's not going to work. Rarely are you successful in persuading anyone over there. Remember, the insurance company cares about one thing and one thing only, and that's profit.
Sure.
That's the model. The model is, let's take in premiums and let's pay as little as we can. Let's deny as many claims as we can. And if we can make 9 out of 10 claimants walk away and only one of them actually stands up for their rights, well, then we've made a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
So we can probably help this individual. All we would need to do is have a look at the denial letter, the medical documentation, the policy, ask him about what's happening, his impairments, his limitations. And as long as we think that we have a case that we can pursue here, we are going to pursue that. And this person is going to pay us nothing until we resolve the claim.
Coming up here, we'll get to what to do when you miss an appeal deadline. Don't panic. We'll get to that in just a bit. And as I mentioned off the top 5 weaknesses insurance companies have that you must know about. That's coming up after a short break right here on In Your Corner. Stick around. You thought you had a secure job. You didn't see it coming. Now what do you do?
I'm going to employmentlawyer.ca.
Always check with the employment lawyer first at employmentlawyer.ca.
Insurance companies deny long-term disability claims all the time. They give lots of excuses. Don't give up. I've seen it all. They've ignored your doctors, they've ignored you. You're angry and you're frustrated. But there's hope. We resolve disability claims all the time. We force insurers to pay what they owe. We're in your corner.
Call Sivan and his team, 1-833-IN-YOUR-CORNER, or go to inyourcorner.ca. You lost your job. They said they had a good reason, but you think you've been wrongfully dismissed. Now what are you going to do?
I'm going to employmentlawyer.ca.
Always check with the employment lawyer first at employmentlawyer.ca. And welcome back to In Your Corner, 1-833 In Your Corner. InYourCorner.ca is the website, the resource you want to use for all things about the show, about Sivan and his team. James as well, who's not here this week, but will be returning probably on our next show here. I mentioned this, and I want to get to this, Sivan. I know it's very important to you, and you want to tell people and educate people about this as well. The top 5 weaknesses insurance companies have that you must know about. If you're on disability, if you're facing that, if you're facing a cutoff or an appeal, this stuff is very important to you. Let me get right to the first one. The top 5 adjusters have many files and don't know your case inside out. It's not all about you, right?
You know what? That's a key thing to understand. Insurance companies, they have a ton of adjusters. They have departments that just deal with claims like yours, like individuals out there who are trying to fight those claims and get approved. Mm-hmm. And the reality is this, that these adjusters are loaded with so many cases, there is just no way for them to know every case intimately inside and out. And so one of the advantages that we have when we take on a claim is not only does our client know their case inside out because they've lived with the limitations and illnesses and impairments, but we know the case inside out, and we have a full team that focuses on a specific case. And what does that do? It means that we are up against the insurance company. We're actually up against that adjuster that has 100, 150 cases on their plate, who's getting a salary, usually a very low salary. And that adjuster, unfortunately, has to contend with us now. And, you know, that's a weakness for the insurance company because, you know, there's this perception out there that the insurance company is so strong and so powerful. That's not the reality. The reality is that insurance company, on your case, is led by the adjuster, this one adjuster that has so many cases, and that person can't possibly be in control of all the facts. And we're able to manipulate that and use that against them to our client's benefit.
Email, by the way, help@inyourcorner.ca. We're talking about the top 5 weaknesses insurance companies have that you must know about. Number 2 is insurance companies, as you alluded to before we took a break. They care about the bottom line. It's a money-making operation. Right?
They do, John. This is very important. I mean, this is not it's not a surprise for anyone that they care about the bottom line. But, you know, I want people to understand something. Insurance companies give you this perception that, like, they're these mammoth institutions, billions of dollars. They can do whatever they want. They can throw all these billions against you, and there's no way that you can fight against them. That is nonsense. And incidentally, I used to work for these insurance companies at the beginning of my career. Here's what happens when we start a legal claim against an insurance company. Internally, that claim now gets assigned to an adjuster whose job it is to shut that claim down. And there is a defense lawyer, pretty much like someone I used to be, assigned to defend the insurance company. Okay. Now, what does that mean? It means that the insurance company is now bleeding money having to defend your claim. So now they're no longer thinking, can we make this person walk away with nothing? Now they're thinking, how much do we need to pay this person to make them now go away so we can stop bleeding money?
Get it off the books, right?
Exactly. So that's what you need to understand. As soon as we start a legal claim against the insurance company and they start bleeding money defending it, not good for them, which means it's good for you.
Top 5 weaknesses insurance companies have. Next one is insurance companies rely on a power imbalance. You're vulnerable because that's why you're on disability, and they know it, right?
They know it. They know it. They use it against you. And, you know, it's perception versus reality. Again, it's this idea that initially when you're on your own, it's you perhaps by yourself or perhaps with family or your wife or your husband. You guys are dealing with so much stress, financial stress, physical stress, mental stress. You don't want to deal with these, the adjuster, the insurance company. And so the insurance company understands that. They know that. But as soon as we come into the picture, at that point, the insurance company is not allowed to deal with you anymore. Now we've evened out the playing field because we know as much as they know about the law, about what our clients are supposed to get. And so as soon as we take that perception that people have that insurance companies are invulnerable and turn it around and switch it and get in their corner, right? And actually fight the insurance company, you know, on a level playing field, everything changes. And that is a weakness for the insurance company, and they don't want you to know that. They would love to continue the perception that they are insurmountable, you know, David and Goliath, right? We always talk about that, but who won that fight between David and Goliath, right?
Yeah. The top 5 weaknesses insurance companies have. Moving on to number 4. Now, we have not talked about this before. Interesting. Insurance companies focus on fraud and how rampant it is to dissuade legitimate claims.
This is a really interesting thing because, you know, over the last few years, there's been a lot of articles in newspapers, in the media about fraud. And don't get me wrong, there's fraud that happens against insurance companies. Unfortunately, it's human nature, right? I mean, certainly if somebody comes to me and I sense that there is a fraudulent claim, I tell them you have no case, we can't represent you, go elsewhere. But here's the thing. people out there have this perception that because there's all this fraud, if the insurance company tells you then, they're not going to tell you that you're committing fraud, but they'll tell you you have no case. You are starting to associate yourself with, well, if I pursued that claim, I would be committing fraud.
Right.
As far as I'm concerned, that's a definition of gaslighting, right? They're manipulating you psychologically for you to start questioning your own sanity. You know, am I really entitled to these benefits? They want you to do that. They want you to believe, as they say to you on paper and verbally and by email, they want you to think that if they tell you you have no case, for you to believe you have no case, to question yourself. The very few people who end up questioning that and end up coming to us, and then we tell them they have a case, John, the relief that they feel, and that is the weakness the insurance company has. We are here to tell the truth. People stand up for themselves. That is not something insurance companies want. That is one of their weaknesses, and they're trying to suppress that.
And the last one they have in our top 5 list this week is insurance companies make many mistakes when adjusting files.
Well, that takes us full circle, John, to the beginning of this segment that I told you that adjusters have so many files. The reality is this. I've never seen a case against an insurance company where I have looked through all their documents and haven't seen a ton of errors that have been made by adjusters. Those errors, they can be factual errors. It can be that they have relied on doctors that have never seen the claimant, doctors who have said this person is not disabled even though they've never examined them. So insurance companies make a ton of mistakes when they are adjudicating these claims. You as an individual, you will not know that. But guess what? As soon as we start a legal claim, they have to fork over all their documents. We get their entire file and we comb through it.
You can see
hundreds and thousands of pages, and we pick out all the errors, all the mistakes. We put that together and we throw it back at them and we use that against them within the legal process. That is a huge weakness of theirs. When I was doing defense work in the past, I used to hate having to go through my client, the insurance company's file, and have to defend all these errors. Well, now on the other side, I can tell you we use that for the benefit of our clients. Huge weakness for the insurance company. And frankly, they don't know how to deal with that because this is something that's very rampant.
Lots of ways to contact and reach out and get a hold of Sivan and the rest of the team. It is inyourcorner.ca, 1-833-IN-YOUR-CORNER. There's also mydisabilityquestions.com. We'll go to that website after we take a short break. Lots more. In Your Corner is on the way. Stick around. You lost your job. They only gave you 2 weeks of severance per year worked. But where can you find out what you're really owed?
I'm going to severancepaycalculator.com.
Find out how much you're owed right now. severancepaycalculator.com.
You've been denied long-term disability. You think you're powerless, but you have a lot more power than you think. I'll tell you a secret. It's a numbers game for the insurance company. They're betting on you walking away from money that they owe you. Don't make that mistake. We resolve disability claims all the time. We force insurers to pay what they owe. We're in your corner.
Call Sivan and his team, 1-833-IN-YOUR-CORNER, or go to inyourcorner.ca. You thought you had a secure job. You didn't see it coming. Now what do?
I'm going to employmentlawyer.ca.
Always check with the employment lawyer first at employmentlawyer.ca. And welcome back to In Your Corner. It's 1-833-IN-YOUR-CORNER, inyourcorner.ca to reach out as well. Another resource, which I did mention before the break, in mydisabilityquestions.com, rather. You go there, ask your questions. There's a drop-down menu. There's a fairly high probability that your question has been asked and answered in depth by Sivan and his team. If not, you can leave it there, and you answer these things really quickly.
Within minutes.
Yeah, you'll get someone on that really quickly. I want to get to one, for example, and I know you want to talk about it. Again, mydisabilityquestions.com says, I was initially denied LTD a year ago, long-term disability, and didn't do anything about it. I figured there was no point in appealing the denial, which you say all the time. I had 30 days to appeal back then. Can I do anything about it now, or am I completely out of luck because I missed that 30-day deadline?
All right. Excellent question. 2 key points on this. Number one, your rights do not expire in 30 days, okay? So forget about that 30-day deadline. Your rights do not expire when the insurance company tells you that you only have 30 days to appeal, okay? First point. Second point, and this is unfortunate, this person says that he was denied 1 year ago.
Right.
John, the vast majority of long-term disability cases we resolve in a year or under a year.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes even within a few months or even a few weeks of getting involved. So practically speaking, it's very possible, depending on the facts here, that we would have been able to resolve this person's case already. And yet a year later, he's
Haven't
thinking...
started it yet.
But I don't blame him. Why do I not blame him? He says, I figured there was no point in appealing the denial. Well, he got that right. There is no point in appealing that denial as far as I'm concerned. That said, there is a point in challenging a denial, an unjust denial by an insurance company. Look, if you can't work, if your doctors say you can't work, if you feel that you can't work, sometimes the employer even tells you, we don't think you can work.
Yeah.
For the insurance company to say that we're going to cut you off, that's ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous. So, you know, whenever that happens, question everything. Remember, the insurance company doesn't have the ability to make decisions just willy-nilly. They can't do that. Everything comes down to the long-term disability policy, that contract between yourself and the insurance company. And that's what we look at. And, you know, this is what I want to say here. Not only did this person potentially have a case that we could have pursued immediately when he was cut off, but we could have probably resolved it by now. But the good thing is that he's still within the limitation period. Remember, you have 2 years,
right?
From the date you're first denied to start a legal claim against the insurance company, and we can definitely help this person do that now.
Help@inyourcorner.ca is the email address to use. You want to contact Sivan or James or a member of the team, you could do that as well. Donna writes in through email, says, why are mental illnesses claims often denied by LTD insurers? How does somebody maximize the chance that their claim will be approved?
So mental illness is often, there's a stigma associated with it still in our society, unfortunately. And, you know, again, there is a perception out there that insurance companies certainly, I think, from my point of view at least, having dealt with them, like to have, which is that people think that if they have a mental illness, that will exclude them from getting long-term disability. And that's far from reality. In fact, many individuals who are treated by psychologists and psychiatrists and psychotherapists and a whole slew of experts out there, specialists, they have legitimate long-term disability claims, and we can fight those denials. Now, how does someone maximize their chance that their claim won't be denied? Well, there's a few ways you can do it. Number one, make sure you're getting treatments. If you're saying that you're disabled because of a mental illness or a disability, you have to show that you are taking steps to try and remedy that. It's called mitigation in law. Lior talks about that as well in a show, in the employment context. The law requires you in Canada to try and lessen your damage, to try and get better, number one. Secondly, you want to make sure that you follow your doctor's advice. So if you have a psychologist that's telling you you should be doing X, Y, and Z, unless there's a very good reason why you don't want to do that, you should follow those recommendations, because if you don't, again, that will be used against you. I mean, legal issues aside, you probably want to try and follow those recommendations because chances are you're going to get better with those recommendations being followed. And the second thing is that you want your treating practitioners, again, whether it's a doctor, a psychiatrist, or a psychologist, or whoever it is, to write reports to the insurance company, updating them on your condition and telling them this person is still unable to work. Here's why. Here's what we're doing to try and get the person back on their feet. So you want to make sure that whoever's treating you continues that dialogue with the insurance company in support of your disability.
Is part of it with mental disability claims, is part of it with insurance companies' denials, and they give you such a hard time because you can't always see it on an x-ray? It's not a broken bone or a missing limb, right?
It's exactly that. It's exactly that. So actually, there are two things at play here. Number one, you're right, it's not an objective injury per se. You can't have an MRI that shows you that you have a mental illness, at least not yet, as far as I know. So yes, because they don't see it, they say it doesn't exist, which is why it's so important to make sure that there's someone who's treating you, and you can show that there are records showing that they're treating you, and here's a diagnosis under the DSM-4, et cetera, et cetera. But you know, there's something else that people need to consider as well, which is this. And you know, I can't tell you this is exactly why insurance companies are doing this, but that's my suspicion based on my conversations with some of the defense lawyers that I know. Insurance companies know that when you're battling a mental illness, when you are down, depression, anxiety, PTSD, all that, you don't have the stamina to fight them. And that's where we come in, because as soon as we're in the picture, the insurance company actually can't deal with you anymore. They're not allowed to speak with you. We are standing literally as a wall between the person and their family and the insurance company. Not only do we stand as a wall, we push back. We go on the attack. So, again, very, very important to understand there is a perception out there that if you are experiencing mental issues, mental health issues, that you will not qualify for LTD. That is not correct. You have a valid claim so long as your doctors are saying that because of those issues, you can't work.
Again, questions outside of the show hour, or at least half hour anyway, mydisabilityquestions.com is a wonderful resource. They get answered by Sivan and a member of his team. In that regard, we'll get to another one. It says, my brother, paramedic, suffers from PTSD. His LTD claim rejected by his insurer because they say he is not totally disabled from working. His appeal was also rejected. No shock there. I'm worried that he'll keep getting worse if he continues dealing with the insurance company. What do you think he should do?
This makes me extremely angry when I'm seeing paramedics, police officers, firefighters, even service members, soldiers who have come back with PTSD and they get denied. That is just, I don't have even the words for that. How can these insurance companies reject these kinds of claims? When we know as a fact that these individuals oftentimes get those kinds of mental issues and illnesses as a result. What this person can do is very simple. Obviously, the appeal was rejected, as they're saying. We can start a legal claim immediately. And I will tell you this, think about this. Do you think the insurance company, John, wants to be in front of a judge or a jury and have to argue that this individual here, this person who is a paramedic, who has seen just unbelievable stuff, that this person is not experiencing PTSD when he's saying he's experiencing, when his family members are saying he's experiencing, when his treating physicians are saying that, they're going to get nailed to the wall. They're not going to do it. They're going to pay out the claim. But someone has to take them to task for it. And that's what we do. We take the fight to the insurance company. We leave them no way out. They have to come to the table and they have to negotiate in good faith.
We're going to slide in another quick email here while we have time. help@inyourcorner.ca. That is the address. Andrew says, you've spoken before about bad faith damages or punitive damages. That some disabled individuals may be able to claim from insurance companies who deny legitimate claims. Can you explain that a little more?
Yes. So under Canadian law, very important people to understand that contracts of insurance are different than other contracts. When you're buying car insurance, home insurance, health insurance, whatever it is, it's not like entering into a contract to renovate your house.
Right.
If that doesn't work out, you're aggravated, but you go to someone else and you get the job completed. When you're buying insurance, any kind of insurance, you are buying a peace of mind.
Yep.
That's the product. In fact, every commercial out there for insurance companies selling you insurance, they want to be your friend. They're telling you they're going to be there on your rainy day.
Right.
So what does that mean? It means that if they break their contract with you, right, after they've been taking premiums from you, you have not only the ability to go after them for what they owe you under the contract, but you can go for other types of damages. And one of those damages, it's not actually damages, it's punishment, really. This is when courts say that the insurance company's conduct was high-handed, malicious, it was just horrible.
Wow.
The courts will, in some instances, punish the insurance company by awarding additional damages against them. So not only can you get damages for what it is that you're owed under the contract, as well as for your pain and suffering and aggravation, but you potentially would be able to get what's called extra contractual damages, which are called, in other words, punitive damages, to punish the insurance company for their conduct.
You call it bad faith. Is this just something they shouldn't be doing, or they do on a regular basis? I mean, out of 100 cases, how many would you see that might include some bad faith damages in there?
John, that's it's difficult to put a percentage on it, but I can tell you that sometimes I start cases and I don't think that there's bad faith. I just think the insurance company had made a mistake. And the more I read into the claim, into the file, and I see some of the communications between the adjusters and their doctors, then I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to definitely focus on the bad faith aspect. So you're asking me how many of those? I will tell you at the very least, 25% of the cases, and that's a lot. Right? Out of 100 cases, 25 cases that I believe that I can bring punitive damages. That's not to say that a judge would agree with me, but my point is that I have seen such bad conduct on behalf of insurers in some claims, and this is why, by the way, some of these cases make it to the media. Right? And I've been involved in some of those. I've commented on some of those. So, again, you have to question insurance companies' conduct. You have to bring them to task. You can't simply let them get away with what I think is, insurance murder.
Yeah. Lots of stuff in the show today. You want to follow up anytime, you can make that phone call, 1-833-IN-YOUR-CORNER. Email, as we mentioned before, help@inyourcorner.ca. Also, mydisabilityquestions.com. We covered a bunch of those on the show today as well. And finally, the website, inyourcorner.ca as well. If you haven't figured it out already, the show is In Your Corner, and we'll join you right here on Next Time.